I can cancel a brainwave or I can induce a brainwave, but it's just energy. I'm pulsing energy into the brain.
Our cells communicate with each other using photons. They also use chemicals. They also use magnetics and vibration and inflammatory chemicals and hormones and all of them all of the time. But very few people are hacking the way cells talk via light, which is the second fastest way they talk to each other.
For most of human history, light was just passive. The sun rose, the crops grew, the day ended. Later, we harnessed light. We made fire. We built bulbs. We learned how to push back the dark. But we never really understood what light could do. We thought it was brightness, or heat, or color. We missed what mattered, that light carries memory, that light carries instructions, that light can shape life itself. We used light to see when we could have used it to heal. Because light was never just energy. It was communication, instruction, the original language of life. And somewhere along the way, we replaced signals with silence, connection with correction, memory with medication, life with survival. But light never stopped speaking. We just stopped listening. Dr. Brandon Crawford is bringing it back. A leader in laser medicine, brain optimization, and regenerative healing, working with pioneers from NASA, Tesla, and CERN.
So yes, we are rewiring the brain. We are growing the brain, regenerating. It's happening.
He's forging a new path, restoring memory to the body, restoring coherence to the brain, restoring miracles to humanity. Because healing isn't about treating symptoms. It's about restoring the instructions for life itself.
The cellular communication is so important, and absolutely at the heart of everything, at the heart of neurophysiology, at the heart of biology, is this concept of light. We are intimately tied to our light environment. And unfortunately, the majority of people today are in a very poor light environment. That's driving ill health.
How does a laser change your brainwaves?
The light you were chasing at the end of the tunnel, you've been carrying it all along.
You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey.
Brandon, this is your third time on the show. And you are one of the most interesting, I don't know whether to call you a laser light therapy guru or whether I should be calling you like a brain regrowth guru, because you kind of do both and a bunch of neurodevelopmental stuff. How do you identify yourself?
I'm just a guy down here in Texas working with lasers and saving lives.
Wow, that old Texan thing. All right, I like that. But you did something different since last time we talked. There's a bunch of new info about light. You just healed a condition that's now getting covered on national news that isn't healable. But you also brought in Kevin Johnson, who's a well-known guy who's designed stuff for NASA and Tesla and even CERN.
Yes.
So you're working with high-level like particle physics product people.
Yes.
What is going on?
I'm glad you brought that up. And first of all, thank you for bringing me on again. You were one of the first people to actually see value in my work. I will, go ahead and make that statement. That was several years ago when we had that initial conversation. I really appreciate that. But you're right. I think that there's so much missing in the photomedicine space. And so I looked and I tried and I tried to talk to CEOs and I tried to talk to laser companies and I said, man, this is a great product. What if, right? And so finally, after just continuing to hit a brick wall, I started going, okay, I'm going to have to make this myself. And so I did. I spoke with Kevin. I already knew him. His son was a patient in my practice. I knew his background and he even worked on CERN. I mean, come on, particle accelerator. This guy's a genius. He really is. But beyond that, we knew that we had a huge task. We want to reshape photomedicine. We want to reshape this concept of photo-biomodulation. There's so much to be done in this space that's not being done. And so we literally have teams of engineers. We have optical engineers, software engineers, mechanical engineers scattered throughout the nation, actually throughout the globe. We have several in Europe as well working on this project as well. Because the things that we are doing, we were told that we cannot do. We were told that we cannot shape a laser beam like this. We were told that we cannot have a power that high. We were told we cannot control the polarization without certain parameters. And guess what? We're doing it anyway.
Why is it so hard? I mean, I started talking about using an infrared emitter from a night vision, like security thing, an $8 thing from Amazon on my brain 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And okay, great. I've got 880 nanometer light. Right. And it worked. Mm-hmm. So why do you need all this laser, like all the stuff you just mentioned, most of which I understand? There's some little parameter things I don't know, but the rest of it, okay, got it. But why?
Great question. So I always like to boil it down to this. laser beams are like a voice, right? So let's just pretend like I'm trying to put a baby to sleep, right? I'm not going to go, okay, baby, it's time to go to sleep, right? Like, that's not how you know, even though I can say, hey, baby, it's time to calm down, time to go to sleep, right? I can say those same words, but I can deliver them differently, right?
It's modulated differently.
It's modulated differently. That's why this is important. The same is true when it comes to laser and light therapy. If we change the frequency, if we change the duty cycle, if we change, like, we have so many different levers that we can actually pull to actually create this very precise delivery of information, right? You can use a device and get good outcomes because photons are great. They're delivering energy. There's going to be great primary benefit from that primary effect, right? That's why it can work. But again, how precise do you want to be? Well, as we continue to progress forward in this world, we should be growing and learning and changing, right? And the industry just wasn't doing that.
It's been stuck for a long time. I got my first medical laser. It was one of the first ones, the cold lasers, the ones that they're used for cutting, probably 22, 23 years ago. And it was approved for racehorses, but not humans.
Yeah.
So I just used that and it was profound what it would do. And since that time, the only innovation has been more power in pretty much the whole field. And if you're listening to this, think of it like this. You could shine a flashlight on someone, right? Then you could change the color of the flashlight. So it means something if it's red or green. And then you could also turn it on or off and have Morse code going. And this sounds super crazy, but we know beyond the shadow of a doubt that our cells communicate with each other using photons. They also use chemicals. They also use magnetics and vibration and inflammatory chemicals and hormones and all of them all of the time. But very few people are hacking the way cells talk via light, which is the fastest, actually second fastest way they talk to each other. Do you know what the fastest is?
Spooky action at a distance.
There you go. Quantum communication, which does happen. And we can prove that also in cells.
Yes.
So you're at the second fastest communication medium and you're cracking the code with your company in 528i. That's why I was like, we have to hang out. This is cool. Plus you're in Austin. It makes it easy.
Absolutely. Okay. But you're right. You know, the cellular communication is so important here. And absolutely at the heart of everything, at the heart of neurophysiology, at the heart of biology is this concept of light. We cannot escape it. We cannot get away from it. We are intimately tied to our light environment. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the majority of people today are in a very poor light environment. That's driving ill health. That's definitely not driving you into an optimized state. So having a tool that you can quickly use, whether it's on your brain, your body, your heart, your muscles, or whatever it is, right? Whatever your quote weakest link is, or whatever you want to optimize, right? That can be very beneficial for someone.
Okay. I have a theory about why your laser works, and it's called the holographic universe model. And one of the more intriguing and maybe more provable models of the universe is that it's a giant hologram. Mm-hmm. And this may be one reason that holograms work. And if you're a nerd and listening to this, you know that you make holograms with lasers.
Yes.
So do you think you're really working your stuff with 528i because the universe is a hologram and I'm a hologram and you're changing my holographic projection?
Why not, right?
Like, I'm from Texas. Shut up, hippie.
Oh my gosh. Hey, I love it. I think that's fine. And yes, you're right. Actually, we're looking at holograms, and that's another realm on how we can actually adjust these laser parameters as well.
Have you seen those crazy videos on YouTube where people like shine a laser down a wall and then they like look into it, down it, and they say that they see like all these signals and Sanskrit and that they're downloading the universe? Mm-hmm. What's the deal there?
You know, I've actually been on a little bit of a journey. So my fellowship is in childhood neurodevelopmental disorders.
Nerd.
So yeah, I know. Right. Well, I've got my diplomate in functional neurology, and then I did an additional fellowship in childhood neurodevelopmental disorders. And so, I've always worked very closely with autism.
Me too.
So for 15 years, I've been working with these kiddos, and a lot of them are very severe. You know, we get more of the severe cases, and I've always been able to have this like almost telepathic connection with them, right? And I never said anything. This was 15 years ago.
Oh, we got the telepathy tapes coming in.
I'm telling you.
Keep going.
I'm telling you. And so I would tell my closest colleagues, I would tell my closest staff members, right? It's like, man, I'm connecting with this kid. Like sometimes I hear a voice, sometimes I can communicate with, you know what I mean? And so when the telepathy tapes came out, right, I binged it. And now I'm on this new kick to where I have some thoughts. I have some things. I'm reaching out to Kai Dickens. I want to do some research with them, specifically bridging the nonverbal autistic kiddos with our locked in pediatric brain injury cases, right? I think, I think there's a way to open up a line of communication there. So what do I think about it? Well, I think that consciousness does not reside between our ears, right? I believe that there's definitely a higher conscious state.
Dude, you're going to have to cancel. You can't say that and be scientific. Yeah, thanks for saying it. Totally agree. Right. So you think consciousness is non-local?
No, it can't be. There's no way.
Yeah, it doesn't fit in there.
No.
We agree on that. I think there's consciousness in your body that's different from your brain consciousness and pre-processes reality.
Yeah.
Does that match our model?
It does. There's research that's been done that actually shows emotions are processed locally in various cell types, not just in the brain. And I believe that this is another connection, whether it's neurological, whether it's physiological, or whether honestly it just goes beyond that and is quantum. Okay. I believe that's really, really, this is where, just to kind of segue back to the laser discussion, right? This is my problem with some of the research out there is that they focus so intently just on those biological effects, right? And I'm sitting there going, we know that photons interact with electrons and subatomic particles. Like, why are we stopping at the mitochondria? Which is very important. Don't get me wrong, right?
Mitochondria make photons and subatomic particles, and they collect them too.
Absolutely. But we need to be studying this in a quantum lab. We need to be going, hey, this is influencing our biology, but like, let's look bigger. That's where I'm at.
Absolutely love this. And maybe sometime on the show or sometime over coffee. I had a dream a couple weeks ago that explains how the autistic brain wires for reality. Because I had Asperger's syndrome when I was younger, and people get pissed when I say I had. I'm like, I don't really have the same brain I had before.
Right.
And you know very well your brain can change a lot because you do it. You take autistic kids who don't talk and you make them talk using lasers. Like, yes. It's kind of cool. So this idea that you can connect, or some people can connect with other people a la telepathy tapes, I think it's real and I think it's teachable, right? And some people are going to be much better at it naturally than others.
Yes.
And I think lasers can probably turn that on.
I believe so too.
Because you can focus it on a certain part of the brain. Do you know which part of the brain to shine your laser on?
I do.
Which part?
So if you want to improve embodiment, right? So a lot of kiddos lack this embodiment. They don't feel their hands. They don't feel their feet. They don't feel, right? They don't feel themselves, right? That's the right insular cortex. So I can laser just right through my temple, right? That's going to be influencing the insula. Now, what you're asking is, how do we project to the world, right? How can we, connect with an external stimulus, whether it's a person, or we can even get weirder and talk about animals or, things like this, right? I mean, hey.
In my shamanic training, they teach you how to do that without lasers.
That's right.
Amplify it with lasers, right?
That's right. That's the left dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. And the interesting thing is that left dorsal lateral prefrontal is constantly monitoring that external environment. And that's also where you get into that flow state, right? So when you're like shooting free throws or like sighting in your gun or like whatever it is, right? You get that flow state. You're highly in that left dorsal lateral prefrontal. So my theory, right? This is my theory, is Crawford conjecture here, is yes, I can use that laser, and I actually have a setting called higher consciousness.
Oh yeah, I've used it. It's great.
Over the left dorsal lateral prefrontal, I do believe that you're improving the hardware of the brain so that you can actually transmit and receive better. Right.
Who would imagine that improving hardware would increase performance?
Yeah.
That's like a core biohacking tenet, and you're doing it with light, which is so cool.
Yeah. Well, I believe the brain is really a transmitter and receiver.
Okay. So to translate these things, the left dorsolateral, basically slightly in front of the left temple, is where you would stimulate the brain so you can have more perception of others. And on the right side around the temple is where you would stimulate in order to have more, we'll call somatic awareness of what's going on inside your body.
Correct.
And if you want intuition, the first thing to do is become fully aware of what's going on in your body. So you would stimulate the right side. And then when you want to reach out, you would stimulate the left, right?
Yes. We really need the right insula and the left dorsolateral prefrontal to come together.
Okay.
And the insula will actually communicate with the left dorsolateral prefrontal and say, hey, this is what's going on inside. And the left side, the left dorsolateral will say, great, this is what's going out on outside. And if there's a disconnect, that's where anxiety can build, right? If there's, if maybe the insula is saying, I have no idea what's going on here. And the left is being bombarded, right?
That's your ADHD stress.
Yes.
That's your autism meltdown right
Yes.
there. And it's a disconnect between the inner state and the outer state, and the body just freaks out because it doesn't work. And
Correct.
This is why autistic people, in my understanding of it, which is kind of embodied, they want things to be a very precise, certain
Yes.
way, because it makes it easier for them to relate to the world around them. And then if you move their comb or whatever the thing is, they're like, ah,
Yes.
right? Because it literally breaks their reality.
It does. And they're hyper aware of it, right? Myself, right? I've got OCD, used to have Tourette's, all the things, right? And yeah, I have to work more on that embodiment part, right? I have to work more on that right insula. And when I get stressed out, like I was in Dubai and, it was nuts. We were still in the middle of a build out and I was, up there in the middle of the night, still training staff. And I was like, man, I just want to go rock in a corner.
Do you know the pulse frequency for embodiment?
It's various things, right? The shamanic resonance, the first order, second order, third order, fourth order, those are very, very powerful when we're talking about embodiment.
These are built into 528. Though.
Yes, they are.
So you just gave people the recipe for developing psychic powers with your laser.
There's way more to it than that.
Okay.
There's way more to it than that. Like when we start talking about the higher consciousness, like those are really, actually really high frequencies.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about embodiment, we have the shamanic resonance, which is the Earth's heartbeat, right? It's what the Earth is resonating at. And it's based on the electromagnetic waves, bouncing through the ionosphere.
Schumann resonance you're talking about.
Yes. Those are very, very powerful when we're trying to embody someone. And something that's really cool is you can actually put that on the bottom of the foot. There's a kidney 1 acupuncture point on the bottom of the foot. There's studies actually that show that by doing that, and specifically they were pulsing 10 hertz in the research study I'm referencing, but that activated the vagus nerve. If they were not pulsing 10 hertz, they were just doing a continuous wave, right? No frequency.
Didn't do it.
It didn't do it.
Pulsing's important.
It's very important.
Wow. This just kind of blows my mind. This morning, I was sitting in my infrared sauna that includes red light therapy. And I was thinking, I'm going to ask my favorite AI tool some really deep questions about pulsing of light, not even thinking about the fact we had an interview today. This wasn't in my mind yet. I don't look at my calendar when I wake up because it takes me out of my
I'm the same way.
Right, so I was doing it because I was playing with a light thing earlier this morning. And I said, well, what are the other frequencies I should be looking at? And it suggested what you had and a couple other ones, specifically when it said for more embodiment. Based on a bunch of different research that's out there. So if you're listening to this and you're going, all this sounds like nonsense, it's actually been reported in spiritual literature. It's been reported by heavy meditators and quantum physicists and neuroscientists. And if you put an EEG machine on someone's head and you use the 528i laser you make, will it change the EEG brainwaves?
Undoubtedly, yes. We see that all the time.
Yeah. Why? How does a laser change your brainwaves?
So it depends on how I want to use it. I can cancel a brainwave or I can induce a brainwave. But it's just energy, man. Like I'm pulsing energy into the brain. And just like if I'm yelling at that kid to go to sleep, right? Well, they're not going to go to sleep. But if I know, okay, I need a higher prevalence of alpha, right? In the posterior aspect of the brain, I can pulse alpha. But once I started playing with the duty cycles and actually, we created a proprietary way to rhythmically change the duty cycle in the 528 laser. Once we clued into that has been such a huge game changer. I can induce a brainwave like that.
We have to talk. I may have to deploy these at 40 Years of Zen.
Absolutely.
As a computer hacker, I've studied everything that happens on a wire or a piece of fiber optic, going up through all these levels of complexity until you get TCP/IP, and then you get web browsers and all this stuff that none of us sees. But at each layer, there's a way of translating a signal from one level to the next. Oh, does the electricity mean a 0 or a 1? What does a 0 or 1 mean? And if people have seen like The Matrix, you get the green ASCII characters falling down, although some weren't really ASCII. But those are a way of encoding electricity as a letter, right? And if you peel back the letter and you look inside it, like, okay, what was the next level of compute down? You get into the network protocols and all this. You're like, okay, cool. This is really just pulses on, off, even though it looks like the letter M or whatever. How close are you at 528i to knowing the communication language we're using with light inside the body?
So that's actually some research studies we're doing right now.
You're actually working on that.
Well, we're doing it in a biological lab in San Marcos. I'm actually looking at how we can communicate with stem cells. And stem cells actually, if you think about it, that's like the most embryonic, ground state that I can look at, right? I don't want to look at cells that have been heavily altered by the world and influenced by all these various things. So I want to get to, the most ground state that I can, right?
Why don't you just look at the ones altered and just unalter them with the laser? Wouldn't that be easier?
Next iteration.
Just check.
That's where we're going. But yeah, that's what we actually want to do is see, hey, can we have this stem cell turn into this cell line? How do we activate the surface receptor proteins? How can we make it mobilize? How can we do all these types of things? So that's literally what we're wanting to look at right now. And I've got my researcher. He's, looking at it. We've done basic sciences and now we just need to, continue and actually do the studies.
Do you think that our mitochondria actually communicate using Python or some other language?
Good question. I don't know if you've seen, there is a recent article just released that perhaps the energy being generated by mitochondria is not all via the spinning of the ATPase pump and the hydrogen gradient, right? There might be actually other mechanisms at play here. I think that the mitochondria are magical creatures, right? That are giving us a ton of energy, more than what people think, right? I think that they are actually producing the majority of our energy. I know that some references will say like 10% is coming from light,
I think I was the first person to put that 10% study in a major book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The guys from Mexico figured this out looking inside the eye.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, you are 10% at maximum Swamp Thing, where you can get your energy from the sun, which is kind of cool. I don't think that's enough to be a breatharian and do butthole sunning, though, is it?
Not enough. No.
Have you tried it?
Of course I've tried it.
Should I put your laser on my butthole?
Why not?
Man, you're hard to rattle. I can ask these questions. Well, I have two, actually. So there you go. And anyone, even Joe Dispenza, by the way, you guys are both going to be at my biohacking conference here in Austin in a little while. But a lot happens with the first yogic lock, where you tighten all the muscles in the perineum. And that's, the root chakra. So of course you shoot a light all the way up your spinal cord. I wonder if you're going to feel anything.
Absolutely. Honestly, I don't think we were designed to wear clothing all the time. We're just not, right?
I'm naked right now under my clothes.
Exactly. We're also not designed to be, inside all the time.
Yeah.
We are designed to be outside. I can tell you my story is that I struggled with low testosterone. I mean, it would be like 175 to 250.
Dude, me too. I was lower than my mom's at 26.
It's bad news, man. I mean, I felt like crap. And I'm still relatively young. I'm 39. I don't want to be on testosterone yet.
Why not?
Okay. Well, I don't want to go there. And so,
just like some kind of wuss or something. You're going to be on it anyway if you're going to live for a long time.
True.
Like, step up,
True. Okay.
Get the dopamine.
I don't want the testicular atrophy.
I know how to stop that. Okay. It's not a secondary thing. It's just the form of testosterone you take.
Okay.
I'll hook you up after the show. Literally.
Okay, fantastic.
It's oral, no ball shrinkage.
Okay, that's perfect.
Mine are growing back right now.
So I wanted to test myself, right? So I wanted to see, okay, what if, I get sun, I'm nude outside, right? I'm
every morning.
Yeah. I'm out on 14 acres, so there's no one around me.
Your neighbors would be like mine do, right?
Yeah. And then use my laser on my testicles every night. Well, my testosterone, no joke, is like 750 right now.
Not bad. What's it free?
It was high range. I mean, it was, I don't remember the exact number. But
Randy Galpin was on the show talking about that. Yeah.
But it was good. I'll tell you that much.
Congrats,
it was significant.
Lasering your balls is really powerful. I have lasered mine more than a few times.
Yeah.
Plus the nitric oxide from lasering the thing attached to the balls that you can't say on a podcast unless you want to get rated. Well, it increases nitric oxide and blood flow. So it might be kind of.
Yes.
It pairs well with Cialis, we could say.
Very beneficial.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Wow. Did you see an increase in testicular volume?
Yes.
Wow. Did you measure it?
No. But
You have little calipers or something? I don't even know how you
I'm
measure
asking
that.
my wife. She's giving me feedback. So.
There you go. Okay, good. It's kind of hard to look at them anyway, so you got to
Exactly.
Did you hear about the study where they took 1,000 photos of scrotums and showed them to women and on a scale of 1 to 10, rate them from unattractive to attractive?
No, I did not.
They did. And funny enough, no scrotum scored above 5. So thankfully, we can barely see them. So we're okay.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. I mean,
So
kind of
your laser won't make my scrotum attractive because nothing can do that. Okay.
No, I'm not going to make that claim.
I want to get a little bit more into some of the things about mitochondria that we talked about. You think they're kind of magical creatures? I think that they're the foundation of reality.
Absolutely.
I believe in a consciousness-centric model of the universe. It's called biocentrism, that basically you can't have a universe without a consciousness observing it. It's the old, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, did it make a sound? Well, if there's something in the world and there's nothing there to see it, was it there in the world?
Right.
And there's more and more evidence supporting that. All the evidence, even in quantum science, supports it, which is why lasers, including the stuff you're doing, would be so foundational and important, because if you have stronger mitochondria, I think they're what interact with reality. We just don't see it that way.
I believe so.
Okay.
I have a lot of thoughts on that, actually. So I think that you can look at this from various views, right? And so I take the approach of like, look, we can talk about this from a faith-based perspective. Mm-hmm. We can talk about this from a quantum perspective. We can blend them. We can do whatever. But when you get down to it, you cannot have life without light. And whether it's the creation story, whether it's the Big Bang, whatever story, someone wants to come up with, light precedes life. And light shapes life. Therefore, it would make sense that consciousness is tied to light.
Yeah, I kind of read that in a book somewhere. Was it Let There Be Light? Something like that. Right. And it's not just that book. If you go to all the creation myths, it's in there. What about sound, though? Like sometimes
so when you slow light down, it then turns into sound.
Yeah.
So sound is really another form of light.
It's kind of weird how quantum physics and ancient scripture align when you look at it. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. And I think it's something that has been ignored for a very long time. But I do believe that there's a collective consciousness right now that's really starting to understand this stuff a lot better.
Wow, we could go deep. We should probably do like some cool one. We'll bring Mark Gober back on, who was just on talking about biocentrism and all. But I want to talk some more about lasers because, at the beginning we talked, well, there's the color of the laser, which is the frequency. And then there's how are you pulsing it? And as you're pulsing it, the duty cycle is how long is the pulse versus the quiet period?
Yes.
Right. So why did you choose them? With your laser, it's the only thing I've seen that has like two different heads. So one of them is 808 and 975, and the other one is 405 and 528. What are those numbers, and why did you choose them?
Yeah, so you're talking about wavelengths, right? So 808 nanometers versus 975 nanometers.
And what colors are that?
So 808 and 975 are near infrared. So those are invisible to the naked eye. The cool thing is with the 808, if you actually do a video on your phone, it looks purple because the frame rate slows it down. And so it's roughly 404, which
that's cool.
Looks purple. But these are the wavelengths. So how long is that, waveform, if you will? That dictates a lot of things. That dictates depth of penetration of those primary effects. So the longer the wavelength, the deeper it will penetrate. Okay. But again, we have to consider the quantum implications. So it's not like the shorter wavelengths don't penetrate. They just do it via different mechanisms. But 808, I wanted that one because number one, I've used it for years and I've seen it do amazing things. There's studies on it that show it improves brain health and function, but also gut function. I can never not talk about 808 nanometers and not mention, the study that showed it had a positive impact on the microbiome. So that's huge.
I have used the 528 laser all over my gut. When I had basically 2 passport photos worth of skin from when I was fat taken off my face, I was lasering it before and after the surgery and I healed crazy fast. And of course I use it on my brain. And the 808, Is that the one that's affecting my gut?
Yes.
Or did that do everything?
Well, it does everything. I mean, it's still going to influence the mitochondria. It's still going to influence, inflammation and all the things, but it specifically does help the microbiome. We know this. It'll actually increase good bacteria, reduce bad bacteria. Wow. It's very beneficial for the gut.
How long does it take to make an effect on mitochondria? Like 5 minutes or 10 minutes with a 528?
On mitochondria?
No, on my gut bacteria.
Oh, on the gut bacteria? Mm-hmm. After one application, it starts to change the microbiome.
That's like 5-10 minutes?
Absolutely. Okay. Now, to see change on testing, right? Well, I'll do a gut zoomer, like some kind of stool testing. I like to at least have 3 months worth of time, right? I don't want to waste someone's, money, just do this one time and redo the test. It's an expensive test. You know what I mean? But we do see, after at least 3 months, using the laser, we do see those gut tests change. Okay. Absolutely.
Would make sense.
Yeah.
And if anyone doesn't believe me, like take some kind of growing bacteria, put them in the sun and see what happens.
That's right.
We'll cool them or make them grow. Right.
Absolutely. Okay. The 975 nanometers was really important though, because in today's world, we have this escalation of non-native EMFs, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing that's doing is that's actually drying up our exclusion zone water in the cell. 975 does have this great kind of sweet spot to help generate more exclusion zone water. I wanted to keep the wavelength below 1,000 nanometers just because I don't want to have to worry about tissue heating, but it needed to be above 900 to really have this more pronounced influence on the exclusion zone water.
Okay. If exclusion zone water is new to you, listen to the episode with Dr. Gerald Pollack, who wrote a major book about that, researcher at University of Washington, kind of luminary in the field. I funded some of his research years ago about how it forms, this special form of water. It's not magic water because you can see it in a microscope. Like it's a real thing. And he documented that the presence of heat or infrared light, or also known as body heat.
Yes.
When water is held up against a fat, I don't know, like the cell membrane fats or little droplets of butter or MCT in hot coffee. Either way, it makes the water into the kind of water necessary to make ATP and fold proteins.
Yes.
And your laser, the 528i, if you put that over your skin or just over your body, it helps to make the water that's in your body, it turns it back into exclusion zone water.
Yes.
Okay, and this is being damaged by the unnatural lights that we're under all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
So weird because exposure to indoor LED lighting is highly correlated with melanoma, but exposure to sunlight is barely correlated, if at all. In fact, sunlight is protective at lower doses. So you think cancer and exclusion of water are connected?
They have to be connected.
Of course they are.
Yes. And there's multiple studies even showing that, you can even consume deuterium depleted water and it helps, right?
Do you really believe that?
I mean, I drink it.
How much do you spend on it?
It's expensive.
So I went down the deuterium, I'm just going to call it a rat hole, 10 years ago. And I spent probably 5 or 10 grand on special water. And if you're listening to this going, what the hell? So there's a heavy isotope of water, heavy water. And there's very small amounts of it on Earth. And we use it in the nuclear industry where my grandparents are from. So there is a theory, and it's a very provable theory, that when you get deuterium in your cells, it creates free radicals and DNA damage.
Yes.
And that if you could magically remove deuterium from your body, that it would increase mitochondrial function, decrease cell damage, and maybe help cancer. So I did this religiously because I'm a biohacker. And I had, a pallet of low deuterium water brought in from Poland or Ukraine or somewhere. All the crazy stuff that like only a billionaire biohacker do, and I'm not even a billionaire. End of the day, unless you're a billionaire with cancer, it's probably not worth doing, right? Because of all the things that would move the needle, you can spend 15 grand on a laser that does all kinds of stuff, or 15 grand on a couple pallets of water that barely move the needle. So I feel like it's like a flag that weird people will wave around. You have to pay attention to this because you can't ever fix it. So you have to be addicted to their content.
Sure. I understand that. So clinically, I'll use it when I have a patient that's really, really, really toxic. So they have a ton of mold or mycotoxin, heavy metals, things like this. And detox pathways are just not working, right?
For a short period of time.
Yes, that's how I use it clinically. For me personally, I'm not drinking it like daily. Maybe like once or twice a week. Maybe it's just one of those like safety blanket things.
And you'd have to do it without collagen and without
it needs to be
without carbohydrate, because carbohydrates are full of it. And
correct.
Like it's one of those things where like, this is a protocol. It's impossible to follow. If it doesn't work, it's because you didn't try hard enough, kind of
right.
things.
Yeah.
And there's also radioactive potassium. You know about that?
Yes.
So all the people saying, well, this is going to save you. I'm like, no. You have to remove all potassium from your food and then replace it with non-radioactive potassium because it causes the same problem. And eventually you're like, I think I might be orthorexic if you're going down that path. So
right.
There's a new word we invented. It's called deuterexic.
I like it.
So I would just get the laser, to be honest. It's just so much easier.
Yes. And you're right about that, because you can use certain wavelengths of light to actually, produce your own exclusion zone water, which is that deuterium depleted water. So yes, that's a much better route.
In the world of biohacking, there's all these like kind of fringe corners, and I usually explore, in fact, I think I've explored all of them that I can find, and some are worth it. And just having worked extensively with lasers for 20 plus years, and yours is by far just blowing me away. Comparing that to all of these other paths, like this is a big one. It's why, years ago I started a low cost, red and infrared panel company. And I just actually sold it to my friend Alan, who's now running it. That one's called True Light. And even back, 10 years ago, I know pulsing matters, but I don't know the frequency. So it pulsed at 10 hertz.
Yeah.
It still does, right?
Which is good.
Yeah. It's better. Sometimes you want it pulsing, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And it's very low cost, and it's not lasers, it's LEDs.
Right.
So it's like, affordable, which was the whole goal to help move it forward. And now you've got like the Lamborghini of lasers here. It's insane what you can do with it.
Yes. Well,
what
thank you.
is the craziest story that you've seen with the 528i?
Oh gosh. Well, we're actually reversing bulbar ALS in a patient right now. And then I also have the
ALS, so Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yes.
You're reversing that.
Yes. Bulbar ALS.
How dare you?
I know. What's up with that? We even have the neurofilament testing to prove it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of phone calls after this. I get calls about ALS like every week.
I mean, it's crazy. I've never moved the needle like this, right? Usually I tell people, look, my goal is to slow the progression.
Yeah.
With this patient, we actually started, we're doing our regenerative medicine, but then I'm also using the 528 laser. I'm using the red, the infrared, and the green.
Okay.
And the green actually has a huge influence on the DNA. Also influences that structured water that we were just talking about. And so when I started to combine the regenerative medicine with the laser, I was seeing things that I've never seen before. And I told the wife, I just had a feeling, right? I was like, hey, this was on a Thursday. I said, hey, on Monday, please just let me know how he's doing. And she called my admin and said, oh my gosh, he's breathing better, swallowing better, and he is, he was to the point to where he was struggling to swallow, and breathing was becoming labored, et cetera, right? And so they then did the follow-up testing on the, neurofilament testing, and she reported back. She was like, oh my gosh, they haven't seen this change. Like his medical team, they've never seen this change before.
Incredible.
Yeah. It's fun. Like I get to go play in my playground every day. I mean, it's amazing. But then we also have, a just extremely touching case, Millie. This is the one that was picked up by Fox News. It's on all kinds of different channels now, but she has a condition called alobar holoprosencephaly. Most of these kids actually are, they don't make it. They're born stillborn or miscarry. If they are born, then they typically, don't make it past a week or so. Well, now she's a year and a half old or so. The interesting thing about this case is that in alobar holoprosencephaly, the brain does not develop. Like she was missing like 90% of her brain at birth.
Right.
And so they tell them, hey, prepare for hospice. Like this is going to happen. And they came to me and said, what do you think? And I said, your kid's fighting. Your kid is trying. I'm willing to be in this battle if you are. This is the first case of this condition that the baby is thriving. Like little Millie, I mean, we were working on crawling last time she was in. She's vocalizing. She's saying mom and dad. She's communicating with her brother. She's eating. She's gaining weight. I mean, this doesn't happen, right? I mean, it's amazing.
You're almost certainly familiar with a case, this is probably 20 years ago, where they did a brain scan on a guy who was 30 something and found that 90% of his brain was missing because it was full of cerebrospinal fluid. Like only the outer layer of his brain existed. All the inner structures were gone. His IQ was like 90 or something. He wasn't particularly smart, but he had a job and a family and things were fine. And people are like, everything we thought we know about the brain is wrong.
Yeah.
So is this a case where you don't really need everything? It's just in there?
Correct. This is where, honestly, my perspective, and I don't want to have an ego here, but my perspective, because I get to see some of the most complex neurological disorders on the planet, it really opens my eyes, right? Because, for example, Millie does not have visual pathways. She's missing a lot of her occipital lobe, right?
Yeah.
She can see fine. She can see just fine. When you look at her MRI, it's like, well, how does she see? I don't know, but she sees. You know, and then
You're talking like Dune or something here.
Yes. So we have to understand that the brain is so much more complicated than what we've boiled it down to and put in medical textbooks.
There's someone I know very well whose entire language processing center in the brain is missing from a childhood brain injury. Yet she speaks 5 languages and does simultaneous translation. Right. So she's only 1 in 28 million people can do simultaneous translation where you hear one thing and speak another at the same time without a visual processing thing. Without a language processing part of the brain, which is above the left ear a little bit. Mm-hmm. So there's all kinds of stuff that our brains are capable of, but they never do it.
Right.
Have any way that I can like make my brain do all that superpower stuff? Because I'm kind of interested.
Yeah, I got a cool laser for you.
All right, man. I'm just going to glue it to my head.
Perfect.
Brandon, the stuff you're doing at 528 Innovations, it's mind-blowing, literally. And like I said, I've been using your prototype laser you were kind enough to share with me for the last 6 months or so. And really, it is the most noticeable of any laser therapy I've ever done. And just hats off for thinking about it in a new, unusual, and forward-thinking, futuristic way. I think you're onto something here, and will call me a fan.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Again, thanks for believing in me and my vision. And I really, really do value that. Thank you so much.
I'll see you at the Biohacking Conference.
Absolutely.
See you next time on the Human Upgrade Podcast.